Good evening. Tonight we bring you urgent developments from one of the world's most volatile flashpoints. We have breaking news from the South China Sea, a region that has become the epicenter of rising military tensions and international concern. Tensions have erupted after a deliberate act of aggression by China, just hours after US, Japan, and Philippine joint naval drills concluded in these contested waters. What was meant as a powerful show of unity and resolve among allies has instead triggered a dangerous and unpredictable escalation. Tonight, Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia are aggressively interfering with a Philippine resupply mission to a remote outpost, raising fears of a direct clash at sea. Reports confirm Chinese ships using high-pressure water cannons and executing hazardous maneuvers to block and intimidate Philippine vessels, putting lives and property at risk. This is a calculated move, sending a direct and unmistakable message to Manila, Washington, and Tokyo. China is willing to defend its claims, no matter the cost. The world is watching as the region teeters on the edge of conflict. International leaders are calling for restraint, but the situation remains highly volatile. The trilateral naval exercises were meant to uphold international law, ensure freedom of navigation, and demonstrate a united front against coercion in the region. China, however, saw them as a direct challenge to its sweeping territorial claims, which cover nearly the entire South China Sea. Beijing had warned of countermeasures, and now we see those warnings materializing in real time, with Chinese forces taking bold and provocative action. The risk of miscalculation is dangerously high, with US and Japanese warships operating in close proximity to Chinese vessels, all on heightened alert. The USS Ronald Reagan carrier, strike group and Japanese destroyers are closely monitoring the standoff, ready to respond if the situation spirals out of control. Their presence is both a powerful deterrent and a potential flashpoint, as any misstep could rapidly escalate into open hostilities. A single mistake, a misunderstood signal, or an accidental collision could trigger a conflict with far-reaching global consequences. The era of carefully managed tensions and back-channel diplomacy has ended. We are now in uncharted waters. We are witnessing open confrontation in the South China Sea, with rival ships facing off at dangerously close range. The stakes for regional security, economic stability, and the rules-based international order have never been higher. The situation is fluid, unpredictable, and the world holds its breath as events unfold hour by hour. The South China Sea is truly on a knife's edge tonight, with the potential for history to be made, or for disaster to strike. We'll continue to follow this developing story and bring you updates as they happen. Stay with us for the latest on this critical situation. China's reaction was swift, intense, and unmistakably deliberate. The world watched as Beijing wasted no time in making its stance clear, signaling both resolve and readiness. Within mere hours of the multinational drills, Beijing unleashed a tightly coordinated campaign, combining diplomatic condemnation with a formidable show of military force. Fighter jets roared into the skies, and naval fleets mobilized at first light, sending a clear message to all observers. The Chinese Foreign Ministry wasted no time, publicly accusing the Philippines of colluding with outside powers to undermine regional stability. Their statements were sharp, calculated to rally domestic support and warn foreign actors. State media quickly amplified the narrative, broadcasting detailed maps and commentary. They painted the US and Japan as destabilizing forces, while portraying the Philippines as a mere pawn in a larger geopolitical game. This was information warfare in action, an orchestrated effort to justify China's actions both at home and on the world stage. Propaganda flooded television, social media, and press briefings, shaping public perception and international opinion. The PLA's powerful Southern Theater Command was placed on high alert, with military leaders announcing new combat patrols in the contested waters. Warships and soldiers stood ready, underscoring the seriousness of China's response. China officially declared the drills a blatant violation of its sovereignty, issuing stern warnings to the Philippines to halt what it called provocations. The message was clear: further actions would not be tolerated. This was not just a reaction to a single exercise. For Beijing, it was a response to what it perceives as a growing pattern of encirclement by foreign powers, threatening its strategic interests in the region. The strengthening partnership between the US, Japan, and the Philippines is seen by China as a direct challenge, a strategic threat that cannot be ignored. The recent drills became the tipping point, prompting Beijing to send an unmistakably forceful message to its rivals and the world at large. The speed, scale, and precision of China's response revealed that this was not a spontaneous reaction, but a pre-planned contingency, ready to be executed at a moment's notice. China was fully prepared for confrontation, demonstrating both military might and political will to defend its claims. Now, the world is witnessing the consequences of these escalating tensions, an unfolding crisis that could reshape the balance of power in the region. The joint drills showcased Allied power and unity. For 3 days, U.S., Japanese, and Philippine navies conducted complex exercises in contested waters. The U.S. deployed the USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group. Japan sent the helicopter destroyer JS Izumo and JS Samudar. The Philippine Navy joined with its flagship, BRP Jose Rizal. These drills built interoperability and sent a clear message: international law, not force, should govern the seas. By operating together, the Allies directly challenged China's expansive claims. The coalition demonstrated resolve and drew a line against Chinese expansionism. The world took notice. China's military response extended to the air. H-6K bombers, capable of carrying nuclear missiles, flew provocative patrols over the South China Sea. Their flight paths skirted the Allied drill area, signaling intimidation. At sea, Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia used aggressive wedge formations to block a Philippine resupply boat. Larger Chinese ships boxed in the smaller vessel, forcing it to the brink of collision. This is gray zone warfare, coercive, risky, and just short of open conflict. The bombers and wedge tactics were synchronized, demonstrating China's control of both air and sea. The message: any challenge will be met with overwhelming pressure. China's strategy is clear: dominate the South China Sea through intimidation. The risk of escalation is ever present. The world is watching these dangerous maneuvers. The stakes could not be higher. The region is on edge. As Chinese vessels swarmed the Philippine ship, U.S. and Japanese warships formed a protective screen. The USS Ralph Johnson positioned itself between the Chinese flotilla and the Philippine vessel, signaling U.S. commitment. The Japanese destroyer JS Samudar shadowed the Chinese, while a Japanese patrol aircraft provided intelligence. This was Japan's most direct protective action in a South China Sea confrontation. The Allies avoided provocative moves, aiming to de-escalate while showing support. Communications with Chinese ships remained professional, urging safe conduct. The standoff was tense, 3 navies in close quarters, each testing the other's resolve. For the Philippines, Allied support was a morale boost and validation of their strategy. The shield held and the Philippine mission continued despite harassment. This was collective defense in action. The alliance commitments were real, not just words. The world saw a united front. The message to China was unmistakable. The standoff set a new precedent. Throughout the tense standoff, Chinese Coast Guard vessels broadcast loud, menacing warnings in both English and Chinese, echoing across the waters with an intimidating presence. "Philippine vessel, you are in Chinese waters. Turn back immediately," they declared with authority, their voices amplified by powerful loudspeakers. These psychological tactics were designed to intimidate the Filipino sailors and apply pressure on the U.S. and Japanese ships nearby, creating an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. The Chinese also challenged the U.S. presence, accusing it of interference in what they claimed were internal matters, further escalating the situation. China attempted to frame itself as the victim of foreign meddling, portraying its actions as defensive rather than aggressive. The Filipino crews, however, stood firm, calmly citing international law and asserting their right to resupply their outposts, undeterred by the aggressive posturing. "We are on a legitimate mission within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone," they replied confidently, their voices steady and unwavering. The radio exchanges became a battle of wills, with the world listening intently, as each side tried to assert its dominance and legitimacy. Despite the threats and the use of water cannons, the Philippine crew did not waver, standing their ground with remarkable courage and determination. Their professionalism and resolve under such intense pressure were truly remarkable, showcasing their dedication and bravery. This refusal to back down was crucial, as it demonstrated their commitment to defending their nation's sovereignty. Ultimately, China's tactics failed to intimidate the resolute Filipino sailors, who stood their ground with unwavering resolve. The Philippines showed it would not be bullied in its own waters, standing firm in the face of adversity and aggression. The standoff became a powerful symbol of resistance and resilience. The world took note, watching closely as the drama unfolded on the high seas. Japan's assertive actions stem from a new defense pact with the Philippines. The Reciprocal Access Agreement allows Japanese and Philippine forces to operate in each other's territory. This deal streamlines joint operations and deepens military cooperation. Japan's shift toward collective self-defense is now operational. The RAA is a cornerstone of the new Manila-Tokyo partnership. China can no longer expect a one-on-one confrontation with the Philippines. The presence of the JS Samudar protecting a Philippine ship was the first real test, and it succeeded. This alliance is part of a broader regional trend, nations forming security networks to counter China. The US, Philippines, Japan trilateral is at the heart of this network. The RAA binds Japan and the Philippines more closely, transforming the security landscape. The new alliance is a living reality, not just a paper agreement. China must now factor in a more unified opposition. The balance of power is shifting. The region is entering a new era of deterrence. China's tactics went beyond physical blockades. Philippine vessels reported electronic interference, jammed communications and spoofed GPS. Chinese ships used powerful sonar, disrupting sensors and marine life. The maritime militia, disguised as fishing boats, swarmed the area, trailing nets to foul propellers. These gray zone tactics are designed to harass without triggering open conflict. Each act is deniable, but together, they create relentless pressure. The goal: wear down the Philippines and establish de facto control. Responding militarily to civilian boats is nearly impossible. China's multi-layered approach is escalating. The incident shows a refinement of these coercive tactics. The Philippines and its allies now face a more sophisticated challenge. The struggle for control is intensifying. The past 72 hours mark a turning point in the South China Sea. The Philippines, under President Marcos Jr., is doubling down on alliances with the US and Japan. This was the first major test of that strategy, and the allies held firm. China's escalation signals a willingness to risk direct confrontation. The stakes for all involved have never been higher. Other Southeast Asian nations are watching closely, reconsidering their own strategies. The region may become more polarized and militarized, divided into competing blocs. The era of ambiguity is over. The lines are drawn. On one side, a coalition upholding international law and freedom of navigation. On the other, a rising superpower determined to rewrite the rules. The South China Sea is now the central arena for this contest. The near miss was a warning of what's to come. A new, volatile chapter has begun. This is Anderson Cooper, reporting from the front lines of a new Cold War.